think growth mindset has the ability to change anyone's trajectory in life. It's that profound. And it expands everywhere. It expands with our kids, it expands with our partners, our families, it expands at work, or you can use this across your whole life.
Hi and welcome to Lead Well. Welcome to this week's episode of Lead Well. And again, I have a wonderful guest. Holly, we have known each other for ages, haven't we?
Love it.
Years and years. And we have met when we still were working in corporate. And then I thought, wow, this woman, this person, she is so special. And I just said in the prep conversation, I cannot even remember all the great successes that you have achieved during your life. And you have primarily worked in sales, have you?
Last 32 years, sales and sales enablement, product development, and then my own company.
Wow. And your own company now is called Matters of Growth. And I know growth has always been your success. So if I remember correctly, you have been the number one salesperson worldwide in pretty big companies twice,
Three times.
three times, even more
Sorry.
than that.
Yeah, three times.
Wow. Two different companies. And the thing is, it was not that you had taken over really the biggest accounts and you just grew them a bit more, but you have turned around things pretty significantly in both companies. Do you want to share a bit about that so that people know who I'm talking to today?
I want to start with Christine, where you talked about it's always been about growth. That really goes back to being a little kid, right? I always was curious, always wanted more, always wanted to grow. And so it's just kind of one of those values and anchors in my life. Yes, I was number one at three different companies. Yes, I sold the two largest deals at two different companies, history, sales manager of the year, salesperson of the year. Then I went into enablement. And in enablement, what I did is I scaled practices across like a 2,000 plus, right, sales force. But really, right, these practices really were connected to helping people grow, right? They weren't about, yes, did we have some talk tracks and tactics, but at the bottom, right at the crux of it, really that foundation, it was like, how do we help people grow in themselves and their mindset and how they think, getting past their fears. Growth, you're absolutely right. Like growth has always been a part of how I think, how I am, and actually some of the good I want to bring to the rest of the world.
Your intent, I always felt your intent was actually to support others. I felt that your intent was not to get the biggest deal, but your intent was to be there to support others. So can you talk a bit about that as well?
Yeah, that's a great distinction because it wasn't about the numbers for me. I mean, gosh, I remember the first time I won that number one award. My boss calls me up. I'd literally just given birth to my son. He's like, hey, Holly, like literally, I'm at the hospital. He's like, Holly, hey, you just won. I just heard your name announced across the stage. And I'm like, how is that possible? I have the biggest quota, the biggest thing in the whole company. How is it possible that, right, with the percentages? And really, like Christine, to your point, like I had no idea because I wasn't focused on it. I wasn't focused on that metric. It was all about, and it still is today and always has been, like that anchor of how can I make a difference? How can I believe that I'm put on this earth to be a change agent in many different ways. And so I would anchor in like some of that purpose and what I believe, and I would just bring that to the clients. Like I can't tell you how many times I would tell someone, you know what, we're not the right solution. Let me show you some things that are. Because when you really show up to do the right thing, to make someone's company or life personally better, right?
So you rather tell them not to buy from you, but buy from somewhere else. And I'm pretty sure they came back because you did that once.
I mean, I had great relationships. At the end of the day, what it turned into was I was connecting with people. What did they care about? How could I help them? And, whether they bought that day or in the future or referred me to someone, right? It was really about that personal connection and the true desire to help someone else succeed. And they could
Mm.
feel it, they could sense it, right? And so whether they bought or not, it usually something good came out of it, right? It could have been the relationship, like I said, or it could have been future deals or sales or whatnot. But a lot of times it was just great conversation, or I
Mm.
walked away having learned something or shared something of value. If, even today, like if you and I'm certain of it, we'll walk away going either like inspiring each other, having learned something different, new, something, right? And that in and of itself is worth every moment of this time together. We don't have to come
Mm.
away with dollars and cents. I know in the world, right, the economy, people need that. But if we look at even these interactions of, what can I learn from you? How can I walk away better? I know I will, right? And
Mm.
I'm coming to the table always to say, what value can I bring?
When I was teaching at the business school, I always ask my students, what do you think is the most important skill for a leader? And they came up with everything like time management and task management and people management and communication and whatever. And I always kind of challenged them and said, well, I personally think it's two things. It's asking the right question and sit down and listen to the answer. And you already said one question. So I guess you are, or you have been using quite a lot of questions in the work you do. So do you have any secrets in the kind of questions that you ask?
Oh gosh, I don't know that I was prepared for that one. Questions are the new answers. So if you
Mm.
come from the perspective of asking questions and being curious, heck, Christine, like being even curious of ourselves, of like, why am I feeling this way? Gosh, I'm a little like, oh, I'm a little nervous, or God, I'm really angry right now. Like, what's going on inside of me? Like, even like the questions aren't always externally facing, right? They could be about yourself, that
Mm.
curiosity. And when we can sit in that curiosity, um, we're calmer, we
Mhm.
can connect, we have more clarity. So, questions really are a superpower. Do I have a secret on how I ask them or not really? Like I'll do a lot of prep like everybody else will in terms of, you know, where am I going today? Who am I talking with? And what kind of questions do I really want to ask? With today's AI, right, you can put that in there and get a good list of great questions.
Mm.
But I think some of the tried and true ones are really about like, what are they worried about? What would just make them so happy and so thrilled, personally and professionally? If you can get people to open up about that and you can lean in and add value there, I think that's where
Mm.
the magic is in any of our lives, any of it, right? Like if I told you, like, my kids are leaving, to go back to college in 3 months, you ask me, I'm like, one of my big wins is like, am I connected enough to my kids right now? That's what I'm
Mhm.
thinking about. That's what I'm caring about. Do I need to worry about my business and grow it and all the rest of it? Absolutely. But if you can help me stay in a way that I'm present and connected and build those memories with my kids, that is where my eyes light up and sparkle, right? And that shouldn't be a question that we're afraid of. Phrase it however you want, right? Like you're going to ask me differently. It doesn't have to be that direct. But if we can get to that point of like, tell me what you're working on, tell me what you care about, then you can just open up doors you hadn't imagined.
And I can already hear a secret there because I know a lot of people would ask about the problems. What is it that you're struggling with? And by you asking about what would light up your eyes, you already set a completely different stage, completely different atmosphere, which is
Well,
wonderful.
I think if we talk a little bit about that aspect of like, talk to me about what would make you sparkle, right? In 3 months
Mm.
from now, you will, people will talk about their problems, right? Like, or now that you're in the conversation, then it's a really natural way to say, well, what's holding you back, right? And you have people, here's where the value could come, Christine. It's like, if you're asking me that and you're like, hey, what's holding you back? And then you go, well, is it really the thing? Like, let's dig into that. You're now helping me self realize I probably have the answer somewhere, but you, by bringing it up together, we're uncovering it, and you're probably adding some wisdom potentially in there as well. That's a gift. That's
Mm.
value. I walk away from that conversation going, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Or wow, I really needed to hear that or understand it or just voice it. So,
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, and I love that you're saying that curiosity is really important because I feel exactly the same. And I think there is one particular approach that I actually discovered through you, the growth mindset.
uh,
What is it that is so fascinating about this approach for you?
I think growth mindset has the ability to change anyone's trajectory in life. It's that profound. And it expands everywhere. It expands with our kids, it expands with our partners, our families, it expands at work, or you can use this across your whole life. People will call it a mindset. I think it's much more than that. It's a
Mhm.
skill. It's an actual tangible skill. If you just know about growth mindset versus fixed mindset, that's table stakes. Yes, it can change your approach in some cases in certain situations, but it's not the level of mastery skill. Like there are actual frameworks. There's ways to pull yourself into self-awareness. There's ways to dig in a little bit more for yourself and others that just make it game changing. And you see it in the news, right? When Satya Nadella said we're a growth mindset company, and every employee down to the person who's watering the plants is learning growth mindset, they attribute the fact that that company's stock tripled as part of his work with growth mindset.
How would you describe what is growth mindset for you?
People call it growth mindset, right? They call it a
Mm.
mindset. So
Mm.
it's a way of thinking, a way of approaching a problem or a situation or a challenge. And, in the definition, Carol Dweck, I mean, you can watch her TED Talk. It's
Mm.
fantastic. And her book, I highly recommend. It's one of the books, if people ask you what are the 5 books that have changed your life, that is the top one, right? Go run to get that book if you haven't seen it before. And even if you have, rereading it, I've practiced this and built programs for companies around it, whether it's focus groups, whether it's built into certain parts of sales training. I just did a conversation for Disney with their cybersecurity team around this. It spans all of what we do and how we do it. It's this idea of not yet. Carol's like,
Mm.
I'm not as articulate yet as I want to be. I don't know how to windsurf yet. I haven't grown my company to be 50 million yet. It's this idea that we're not there yet. This is like one of the hardest parts, Christine. Like people get criticized, they shut down, and it's your fault. And oh, it's the economy. I can't hit my sales targets because it's the economy. And they're closing budgets down or they're bringing it back. And that might be all true. The person in a fixed mindset is I can't make my numbers because of that. I'm fixed. Okay, our situation is tough. What can I learn? What can I do differently? How can I pivot so that I can still hit my numbers or exceed them or take advantage of this or grow and get better? What do I need to learn and do in this situation? That is the difference between a growth and fixed mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even add to that because I think if children are talented, then they think everything is easy and they don't have to work hard to achieve things. Whenever they then grow and come across problems that are more challenging, they don't even try because they think they won't succeed and they might look stupid if they did try. I think that's something else that I learned through the growth mindset is that there is no such thing of failing when you try because you can only fail if you don't try.
Right.
And that's also something I learned from
Yeah.
this approach.
So you can use her book or my frameworks or other resources out there to really start challenging old beliefs.
Yeah. And I also remember that she describes that it's the belief you put into a person that can also change things. So if you tell a student, or if you tell the teacher that the student has a lot of potential, they will be great at the end of the term, regardless of what their potential is, because the expectation already is helping them.
It's that, and then you would add to it what the research shows by just educating people on what hard things do to our brains.
Mm,
Anytime you do something hard, and that is the kicker, it has to be hard. It's
mm,
not just like, hey, I realize I'm in growth mindset and all happy. Like, no, I'm doing hard things. Like, your brain is growing, your neurons are changing. Once you start teaching people on that, it actually shows that you'll move from a fixed mindset to more growth. And by
mm,
the way, this is super, super important, Christine, and I know you've seen this as well. Nobody it's not a 0 or 100. You're not fixed or you're not growth. Nobody is all growth because we're human, right? And we have feelings and triggers and defenses, right? We're all somewhere on the spectrum of growth or fixed, and we're either more fixed in certain situations or not. The good news is you can grow it. I have seen people like literally on some of these tests on the lower end of the spectrum. By the end of it, they are on the higher end.
mm.
So we all have to do work and have some kind of frame of reference to help us out of those fixed moments. Yeah.
It's not something that I do and then I kind of
Yeah.
tick it off. It's a journey.
And I wonder if I call it a journey as much, right? We all talk about the
Mm,
journey and learning and growing. And yes, it's growth mindset doesn't have to take that long. Or like you don't have to invest years and years and years to get better at it. It is one of
mm,
those meta skills, right? A meta skill will make a lot of things easier. It is a meta skill that will make things easier in your life. It'll make doing hard things easier. It will make them easier to do, and you'll get more joy and more fulfillment and more connection out of it. But I just want to say, like, do you practice it all your life? Absolutely. But
mm.
it is something that you can pick up and start running with very quickly without a great deal of heavy lifting to get
It's
more to
just a
that.
matter of really remembering it.
Yeah, and having some basic tools and reflection. Like, did you rate just some of the simple peak performance science? Are you checking it off at the end of the day? Are you making sure? Did you go to the growth mindset gym today? And it's one of those things that you build and it becomes a habit. Like you don't think about breathing anymore, right? Like we don't think about walking mostly, right? And so what are those? And I'm not saying it's ever going to be that automatic. Don't get me wrong, but you do have the ability, like when you spend time in building a habit, it will become more habitual just the way you're thinking. And so
Mm,
using those frameworks like their muscles, like you're going to the gym to do it.
yeah. So now you're working in your own company, Matters of Growth. What is the purpose there?
Yeah.
What is your
Intent.
mission, your vision?
From a mission or intent perspective, Christine, it is as simple as we make people better.
Mm,
Like I can get all this great, language out and fancy stuff, but at the end of the day, we're making people better and they multiply an impact in the world. The idea that we create multipliers that bring good for themselves, for their families, for the community, for their business, right? That's the idea.
wow. Uh-huh.
And so at the end of the day, when I'm addressing, let's grow your sales for the person or the organization, I'm looking at all of those areas of friction, personal friction, system friction, buyer friction, and we're making it better.
Wow.
Like we're breaking that cycle, we're making it easier, and more importantly, like connecting with the people and their purpose. Because if we can connect with the people and who they are and what they value and what they're convicted about, they can connect to the company product. They can then connect to the customer outcomes. And that connection of value, I call it connected success, that connection, right, gets back to what we started talking about,
Mm,
which
yeah.
was how do we show up and ask questions and connect and build trust. And I think starting with the person and how that person shows up and
Mm,
their personal intent and their personal anchor, is I would put it on, if I had to put like, what are the 5 things that are game changers in sales, in a sales led, right? Not a product led sale, like with the personal sales force and whatnot, that's going to be one of the top ones. And it's not talked about. It's not trained. People don't see it. They know how to implement a CRM. They know how to bring in call technology. Dealing with people is hard. So my point is go build your people. Build your people. Give them the skills. Give them the peak performance skills that nobody trains about, that they have to go learn on their own. Be different. Bring that into your organization and build the people with their skills so they understand deep focus. So they understand the 5 minute start and how to get started when they want to procrastinate. They understand the power of community and how community raises expectations and the ability to succeed by 67%. Build your people.
Wow. And it's all centered around people and the person. And I love the little sign you have next to you. We cannot read it fully, so maybe you can show it to us because I saw it at the beginning and it's really, yeah.
This in my home is to remind my kids or anybody who walks in the door, be
Mm.
who you are, right? You don't need to be anything else. You don't need to be this perfect person. You can be messy and imperfect and frustrated and cranky and all of that. Just be yourself. And I'm going to accept you and love you with it, right? I think it's wherever we can show up and help each other grow. It goes back to Christine, what you talked in the beginning, right? Like growth, like it's all about growth. And I believe the personal growth, and that's been part of my own story, frankly. Like I didn't get to be number one in the world until I had devastating personal losses in my life that happened because of me, that I made them. They were devastating, devastating, devastating. And I had to I dug into them, like, how did I do this? What did I do? And I'm like, oh, Holly, back when you were 28, you had a very low EQ. You didn't even know how to spell emotional intelligence. And so I spent the last, what, 35, whatever it is, years working on the depth of that, Christine. Right. And as I built EQ, I'm like, oh, now all of a sudden I'm number one. Then I built you have these moments in your life that are just, they're so in your face, right? Failures or whatnot that you know, are you going to stay the same or are you going to get better? And what I
Yeah.
hope, Christine, is that people don't have to have those devastating moments. So they could be like, you know what? I want this now. I want the healthy skills. And this is what this all comes down to at the end of the day. Like if you had to say, Holly, why are you doing this? Working on these things builds us as people. It gives us healthy relating skills. If I have more emotional intelligence, if I have my adversity quotient, which is really it's resilience and a whole bunch of other things that make us stronger, better, etc. If I have them, I'm better at home. Like my son's sitting over here, nothing in my life that I don't want to build and connect and love on my kids and have them have these really healthy skills. I've just seen it in my own life. I've seen it in my own success. I've seen it in others. Like when you look at, and again, you're going to laugh, Christine, because the research says, if you look at top performers, it's some crazy number, like 93, it might be off by some percentage, but it's in the 90s. Top performers, like 90 some percent of them have very high EQ, right? And then, but that's not all they have, but that's one of it, right? And so when I'm helping a company grow their sales, you better believe we're working on EQ. You better believe that. And it's not this soft, right? Like fuzzy, this is give me a weight. Let's go to the gym, right? You can do these reps and you can build it. Is when people work, and I think this came out of McKinsey's meaningful work study, what you work on at work transfers at home. So my life has become better because I've worked on these relational skills, these interpersonal skills, like dealing with conflict, right? Boundaries, communication. So if you work on it at work, you will take it home.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I get that. I could go do 1,000 things with sales, Christine, right? Because of my background and enablement and other things like that. I want to be at the place, the intersection where you and I, if we're working on your sales, you're walking away from great, this insight, this growth that surprised you. You got, different sales in record time. You broke some records, barriers, right? Things that I've been known in my career, and you have better relational skills. You've broken some cycle. You've broken some barrier. The last thing I'll say, and I would love your perspective here, whether it's Neurographica, right, or the work that you do with animals. There's power in here. It doesn't have to be unattainable. There are real, tangible things that you could go build a plan and go do and get better at.
Yeah, it absolutely resonates, because what I have learned, and that's mostly through the work with animals, is that the way we show up and the way we build a relationship is always the same, regardless, whether it's with our dogs, our horses, our kids, or our teams. It's exactly the same. The way we behave when we work with pressure, when we work with dominance, with these hierarchies, the only thing it does is that those that you are managing will do what you tell them to do, as long as they are more afraid of you than everything else. And as soon as there is anything that they're more afraid of than you, they're off. And it's exactly the same for every being. And so the only way I think we can really collaborate and really build relationships is through trust. And yeah, you have to understand the other. You have to be open to understand the other. So I completely relate to that.
It's interesting, like this idea, like you're working with animals, and how we relate with animals is how we relate everywhere. It should be, right? Are you giving them the care and the attention, or are you leading with fear? And it's funny, you said, and I find this fascinating, Christine, the part about they'll follow you as long as they fear you more than they fear something else. You relate that to sales, right? Going back to, why don't people pick up the phone? Why don't they make those calls? I'm sure they fear losing their jobs and their managers. They fear the rejection. They fear the sales stereotype. They fear other things, even if it's unconscious, more than they do that. So I've never thought about it in the power structure that you're talking about. That's super fascinating.
Yeah, I think there are so many things out there that they're so helpful, and it's a matter of researching them and finding them and letting the world know about them.
Put your research hat on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Wow.
thank you,
Well,
Christine, for
Holly,
your time. I appreciate it.
yeah, I could go on talking to you forever.
Yeah, same here.
So where can people find you? Where can people find more, read more from you, hear more from you?
Yeah, the easiest place is LinkedIn. Holly A. Moe. It's the A that matters. And mattersofgrowth.com. And I'm open. I love having conversations. Let's just have conversations. Let's add value. So if there's anyone listening that wanted just to connect, we can talk about sales. We can talk about growth. We can talk about growth. Like, we talk about anything. We talk about Seattle, right? Like, I don't care, right? Or the weather. I just love meeting new people, right? And I think that matters, and being open to that. So if there are people listening, I'd say, like, open up your own doors, right? To people. Like, you'll never know who you meet and what you can learn. And so the best way is a direct message on LinkedIn, follow, find my stuff, and then reach out. I'm happy to connect.
Wonderful. Wow. So the only thing I can say today is thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, my friend. It's great being here. Great chatting with you. I always learn something, Christine. So thank you for the time and the opportunity.
This was Lead Well. Now, what is the one thing that you're taking away from this episode? Please share in the comments below, and do share the podcast with your friends and family, but only if you like it.